Hey friends! I cannot believe I am making this video. It seems like April just started. I'm gonna manifest I'm not the only one thinking that, but being as it is the end of a month, my birth month no less, I am very sad. I enjoyed making everything about me. I'm gonna be completely transparent. Happy belated birthday if any of you also celebrated your birthday in April. But today we are going to be talking about the 7 books I read in April. So I want to be a little disappointed in myself because I planned on reading a lot more than I actually did. I just was being very optimistic. That being said, I don't think any of the books I read this month were on my April TBR. But I am also a mood reader, so I'm gonna do this backwards up, okay? We're keeping it interesting. So we're gonna start with the Windy City series by Liz Tomford. I actually bought this series because all of my mutuals were recommending it. Almost all of them gave it 4 or 5 stars. I trust all of my mutuals' opinions very much. So this is currently an ongoing series. I am so excited because the next book in the series is going to be about Kai. He is a single dad. Not only that, he's a baseball player. You all are well aware how I feel about baseball players and single dads. There couldn't be a better case scenario. Then after that, it's supposed to be Rio's book. I think she's gonna close out the series with his story. But nonetheless, I am just so interested to see what this author does. So starting strong, we've got Mile High. This follows Stevie and Xander's. She is a flight attendant that is currently working with the NHL, and Xander's is the playboy of the NHL. I've only read 2 hockey romances. Not even. The only hockey romance I've ever read was Icebreaker, and it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. I enjoyed it, but I think I may have only rated it 3 stars. I'm still very new to sports romances, but Liz Tomford made me fall in love with them. So essentially there's this rule that the flight attendants aren't allowed to fraternize with any of the players, or else they get fired. I think you are well aware where this is going. I absolutely loved that everything in this book was within the realm of believability. The people were as real as their struggles. The author did a wonderful job depicting mental health and the effects of only growing up with one active parent. Both Stevie and Xander's came from broken parental relationships. Stevie's dad is very charismatic, whereas her mom is very cold-hearted. Xander's mom walked out on them, and his dad essentially stopped being a parent, or so Xander's thought, because he was always spending his time at work. You can very clearly see the damage their childhood had on them. I am so impressed with the way the author wrote this in the present tense, because usually in literature it's written in the past tense. The characters were hurt by this person, not that they are hurt. Those scars don't just go away. They can easily be opened again without getting closure. Don't even get me started on their relationship. It was so healthy. There are lots of unfortunate truths to both of their lives, and they weren't going to avoid them. Neither one of them was in denial when it came to what they were getting themselves into. There was no miscommunication in this book. It was very open. Usually I love the angst that the miscommunication trope builds, but more times than not, it's just overdoing it with the dramatics. That being said, the ending was slightly anticlimactic because you wouldn't expect it from them. There was a 3rd act breakup, and I don't think it aligned very well with their character arcs. I think the story would have been stronger if they worked through the media and the rumors about them together. It's gonna exist for them their entire lives. It doesn't just go away once you retire. So getting used to it sooner rather than later would have been preferable, I think. Now, the character growth was some of the best I've ever seen. I mentioned this in my reading vlog that I'll be posting later this month, but I've only ever seen it this well done in the Addicted to Calloway Sister series, and that is my favorite series of all time, so that is genuinely the best compliment I could ever give. It was so subtle, and it lasted throughout the entirety of the novel. We saw Stevie overcome her struggles with her body image and become the most confident version of herself, while also standing up against everyone that tries to walk all over her. Xander stripped himself of the playboy image and became someone that believes in the possibility of love and family. It was definitely a pleasant surprise because I'm going to be completely transparent. I totally thought I was going to hate these characters in the beginning. Maybe not all of the characters, just Xander's. I definitely was side-eyeing him a good portion in the beginning. Once again, going back to Stevie's body image, it breaks my heart because you can only write that accurately about it if you've experienced it, but I'm just going to be optimistic and pretend the author did very thorough research. I also want to acknowledge how long the smut scenes were in this book. I am telling you, I got to the first one and I totally thought it was going to fade to black, and then we just kept going. It was 20 pages long, and it was that consistent throughout the entirety of the book. It was so disgusting descriptive, and I am absolutely living for it. She absolutely served, okay? This is a longer book. It is closer to 500 pages, but because of that, the pacing was incredible. The two aspects I pay attention to most in books are pacing and character development. She nailed both of them. I am very particular. I wish I could put into words just how precise I can be, but I've got no complaints. The supporting characters stole my heart. Anyone can create lovable leading characters, but it takes a strong author to create equally as lovable side characters, or rather supporting characters. I'm talking, I need a book on Madison and Logan yesterday. Madison is Xander's best friend and his wife is Logan. They've got 2 children, Ella and MJ. They stole the spotlight. Then we move on to The Right Move. Oh my god, I think this was my favorite book I read this month. It is the second book in the Windy City series, and instead of it being about the NHL, it's about the NBA. So essentially, we were introduced to Indy, Stevie's best friend, in Mile High. She finds her boyfriend of 6 years cheating on her at the end of the last book. So in this book, Stevie convinces her brother to let Indy move in with him because she's now got no place to live. She's not gonna live with her cheating ex. Why she didn't make that man move out and grovel, I'm not sure. She should have just taken the apartment, but then we wouldn't have been introduced to this story. You win some, you lose some. But essentially, Ryan is actually very closed off when it comes to relationships. He's got a very small circle and only trusts a certain amount of people. Those people literally just being Ethan, one of his teammates, Stevie, his sister, and Xander's. This is definitely probably my most tabbed book. As someone that never stops talking, this book just left me speechless. Indy is me, I am Indy. We are one. I absolutely love her. She is standing alongside Daisy Calloway as one of my favorite fictional women. She is this colorful sunshine girl that just loves without limits. She gives so much more than she gets. So then when we were introduced to Ryan, he proves that he is the book boyfriend. I'm talking once again, standing alongside Reich Meadows as one of my favorite fictional boyfriends. I just want to put this into perspective for you. He built her a bookcase with his own 2 hands. That man can afford to have someone build it and bring it up, but no, he wanted to be the one to do it for Indy. He makes her coffee every morning and puts it in the fridge so it doesn't get watered down with ice. Why doesn't he just buy iced coffee and keep it in the fridge? It isn't the same, and he acknowledges that. When he knows, he knows. If he wanted to, he would. Girl. He also makes her breakfast more often than he doesn't. Said the 3 words every woman wants to hear. Read with me. He's good with kids. I mean, absolutely exceptional. He sings some lullabies and everything. Tell me that isn't the hottest thing you've ever heard. He slept in his car because they were arguing, and he wanted to still be there for her while respecting her boundaries and giving her space. The man gets it. Not only that, before they were even together, he paid for her fertility treatments because he knew that was what she was saving up for and the reason she couldn't buy her own apartment. He also had her mom teaching him ASL so he could communicate with her deaf father. Why her ex couldn't communicate with her father is beyond me. You would think after a relationship that you've been in for 6 years, you would know how to do ASL. But no, the man just didn't even try. So without a doubt, Ryan is an upgrade. My absolute favorite. He bought her a house. A literal house. When is it my turn? I want a house. Who's gonna buy me a house? Everything about their dynamic was just, once again, it is such a healthy relationship, even more so than Stevie and Xander's, I would say. There's still that pining for them to be together and the angst of the climax without an irrational 3rd act breakup. They're just destined to be together. They are most definitely the book couple that stays together forever after the epilogue. Once again, the plot was oddly within the realm of believability. I say that because I'm not married to an NBA player, so truthfully, I've got no experience. If anyone wants to give me some, I will definitely take you up on that. But everything about their dynamic with family and friends was so normal. Usually when media takes on portraying publicized jobs like the NBA, make the protagonists' lives out to be a lot more grand than they probably are, but not Miss Tomford. So I am now channeling my inner Taylor Swift and trying to mastermind my way into a relationship with a professional sports player so I could be the next Indy Ivers, or should I say Indy Shay. I absolutely love that. It was definitely a slow burn, but so worth it. Moving on, then I started the month with the Calamity Montana series by Debney Perry, or should I say Willa Nash. I'm not quite sure why she wrote under a pen name, so if anyone knows, please tell me. I actually started this series because I was looking for books that I could just zoom through. I didn't want to get too invested in anything because in a week I was going to be seeing Taylor Swift and also celebrating my birthday. So many activities. I actually read this out of order, but I'm going to give you my thoughts in order. So the very first book in the series is The Bribe. It follows Duke Evans, the town sheriff, and Lucy Ross, a famous country singer that is currently missing. They actually met on a hiking trail, but when they're introduced to each other, she gives him a fake name because obviously she's trying to keep her identity under wraps. So when she's moving to the town of Calamity and he pulls her over for speeding, he's very surprised to learn that Jade is not her real name. She bribes him to keep her identity a secret, but he's on a mission to learn why she is trying to escape her old life. We then learn that she's being stalked. I am not a lover of the stalking storyline. Perhaps it's because I didn't read the series in order, but it just didn't meet my expectations. Going into it, I already knew Everly and Lucy's story, so I knew how this book was going to end. I was well aware there wasn't going to be a suspense aspect to it because of that, but I just didn't prepare myself to be completely and utterly disconnected from these characters. Don't get me wrong, Lucy and Duke were both very lovable. They were just bland. There wasn't much depth to them as individuals nor as a couple. They weren't enemies, but they weren't friends. It ended up being an insta-love story. I just don't like that. They were sleeping together by the 100-page mark. They were on a mission, okay? I wasn't rooting against them, but I also wasn't rooting for them. As an Inks lover, it could have been the lack of conflict between the two of them. They just seemed too perfect. Also, considering her current situation, you would think she'd be a little more recluse, especially in a town of strangers, but no. She was making friends left and right. I respect it. The climax was then very short and made the entire build-up just seem anticlimactic. Then we move on to The Bluff. I read this book first. It is all about Everly, Lucy's best friend that we were introduced to in the previous story. After also being stalked, she's moved to Calamity to get a fresh start. She's decided she's going to stay in her apartment for as long as possible though. One night, she ends up going to the bar. She meets Reese. He is a single dad, but he is currently in a custody battle for his daughter. She's actually a teenager. I expected her to be a lot younger, but she was actually with Everly and Lucy at the end of the last book. They went through a very traumatic experience together. So Reese and Everly already know each other. Reese's lawyer makes a joke that if he had a woman in his life, he would be more likely to get custody of his daughter. So naturally then we've got this hoax of a marriage. Everly proposes that they get married. Then they get divorced once he gets custody of her. That won't raise any suspicions. But surprisingly, he agrees. It takes him a while to come around, but he does. My quality of life after reading this book was absolutely thriving. If I could use one word to describe this book, it would be comfort. Everything about this series was so cozy. I would read it if you aren't looking to think very much. As I mentioned, I read this book first. When I realized it, I was only 40 pages into it, so I easily could have started the first book in the series instead. But I was just too invested to do that. It actually read as a standalone. This entire series are interconnected standalones. So many times when it's marketed that way, they just don't read that way. I've told you all about that time and time again, but this one did. It is also a small town, grumpy sunshine, single dad, marriage of convenience, and Reese is an artist. That is so hot. Everly is just a force of nature. She's got a heart of gold, and it absolutely made me livid the way everyone was trying to take advantage of her. She genuinely just grins and bears it the entire story. She's better than me, because I could never. She's got so much perseverance, and it's inspiring, but I genuinely just wanted to hug her the entire story. I will say I was a little disappointed with Hux's character arc at the end of the story. He definitely should have groveled a lot more than he did. It was mid-tier, but it was realistic, unfortunately. The ending going into the epilogue was a little abrupt. I'm gonna be completely transparent. But outside of that, the pacing was immaculate. The epilogues were the gift that just kept giving though. Yes, I said epilogues, plural. Then we moved on to the third book in the series, The Brazen. It is a small town, forced proximity, enemies to lovers, romance. I've got a lot of thoughts about this book. Kerrigan is an independent girl boss that is just put into a bind once her mentor and financial investor passes away. Oh no, how will she ever go on? Enter said investor and friend's grandson, Pierce Sullivan. He clearly slept on the wrong side of the bed for years. Because what other explanation is there for that brooding attitude? He starts demanding that she pays back her loan in 30 days. The same loan her previous investor gave her a verbal extension on, naturally. An extension this man won't agree to unless there's a contract to prove it. Obviously there isn't. In one of many desperate attempts to negotiate with this man, she takes it upon herself to drive to this man's cabin where he's living. But she doesn't expect to get snowed in with the one man she can't stand. There's just enough depth to intrigue you and just enough steam to tide you over. I would say there's an equal amount of character and plot driven moments. So the story wasn't primarily led by one or the other. That being said, I don't want to say that the story was all over the place. It's just very involved and unique. There were some unexpected plot twists that I just wasn't in love with. As an angst lover, I needed that man to grovel a lot more than he actually did. All he said was, "I'm sorry." Actions speak louder than words, bud, okay? It also just seemed very out of character for Kerrigan not to expect more from him. Not even just expect, but demand. I'm talking respect. I was also very surprised by how soon Pierce fell in love with Kerrigan, especially after learning about his past. It is just warped, let me tell you. His past just made me very uncomfortable. I'm not sure why that was the plot we decided to choose, but we did. I personally am not a lover of the insta-love trope. I've never read it in a way that makes me believe otherwise, so it was very difficult for me to put aside how their relationship turned from platonic into something more. Now, the rest of me talking about this book is going to be spoiler based. I could not spoil the book more than I am about to do. So just continue on to the next book if you want to be surprised with this book. So Elias ends up being Pierce's son. He's a single dad now because his wife and him were pursuing surrogacy and it ended up being successful. His wife ended up dying in a plane crash. The same plane crash that Kerrigan's investor and Pierce's grandfather died in because they were having an affair. So his son Elias just seemed to solve all of their problems. So part of me, though I don't want to believe it, feels as though they love him more than they love each other. If he wasn't a part of Pierce's life forever, would Kerrigan have forgiven him as soon as she did? I don't believe so. Every family is different, but between that and them having a child as soon as they did, it's a justified conclusion to come to. Overall, it was a mostly enjoyable read. I did rate it 3.5 stars. Then we move on to The Bully. It is the 4th book in the Calamity Montana series. It is probably without a doubt my favorite in the series thus far. It's a tie between this one and the next one. It was this palpable enemies to lovers, small town, slow burn romance that just gave me all the butterflies. So Nellie works very close with Pierce from the last book. Naturally, because Pierce moved to Calamity at the end of the last book, she is also moving there in the beginning of this book. They are starting a new branch of his business, but much to her dismay, another man is also moving to Calamity. Not just any man, her arch nemesis, Cal. He is an NFL player. He is also Pierce's best friend. Nellie is also Pierce's best friend. He's got 2. There's no denying that. The man isn't going to choose favorites. Truthfully, if he was, I think he'd choose Nellie. But essentially, they are trying to manage being in the same town together. That is how much they don't get along. He literally bullied her in high school. But Nellie's all grown up now and she's going to stand her ground, as she should. So both of them are trying to be there for Pierce as him and Carrie have their second child. Both of them are just trying to drive the other out of town. From the little glimpses we'd gotten of Nellie in the previous books, I already was well aware I was going to be in love with her. She's just got this fierce loyalty about her. She's a lifelong friend kind of girl, an independent girl boss that just absolutely owned her personality. She was just so unapologetically her, and That melted my heart. As for Cal, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't in love with him. There was a lot of talk about his character just being an absolute prick. But I didn't want to judge too soon. Well, I will say he definitely has and had his moments. He wasn't shy to own up to his faults. I respect it. He's one of the very few men I think didn't need to grovel. He and Nellie were just straight up with each other. That's what I love about their dynamic. There was no sugarcoating them or their personalities. From page 1 to the last, this was just addicting. I was worried these characters were just going to be immature, and while others may disagree, it didn't read that way to me. There was a very unexpected storyline that just made the story that much hotter to me. So essentially in this book, Cal steals one of Nellie's diaries from high school. He's reading through it, and about every other chapter we get one of her entries. It was just such a brilliant way of incorporating an alternating timeline. It gives you just enough information to tide you over while also keeping you on the edge of your seat. I will say I wish we got more of them as a couple before the epilogue. Throughout this entire series, my constant critique is that the ending is just too abrupt. We just go directly into the 2 epilogues. They're usually the same. The couples got married, they've had children. Perhaps they're also pregnant with another child. In this scenario, I'm just not sure it aligned with Cal and Nellie's personalities to not only get married as soon as they did, but also have children. We did get some bombshell news at the end of this story that leads us into the next story. So the next story is The Brawl. I don't have a physical copy of this one, but it is a small town single mom romance between neighbors Lark and Ronan. Lark is probably my favorite character in the entire series, right next to Nellie. Also Everly, but Lark is just the cool older sister vibe. She used to be an elementary school teacher, but they just transferred her into high school to be an English teacher. Ronan is the town's newest resident. He is opening his law firm. He's also defending a student that is trying to sue Lark. There's just something about Daphne Perry's writing that makes me want to curl up on the couch with a cozy drink, all warm with my fuzzy socks and sweater. It just gives fall vibes. The kind of books you just want to read for hours on end. Lark's just got this warm energy about her. Her character arc was completely unexpected, but it was totally worth it. From seeing her with Elias in Pearson Kerrigan's book, we already know she's got this soft heart when it comes to kids. Ronan is definitely my favorite male character in the series. His comedic and genuine nature just roped me in from the very beginning. I mean, the second he started playing with Ren, her daughter, I was done for. My ovaries just went goodbye. Absolutely imploded. They're gone. I mean, he nicknamed her Firefly. What? Then she started calling him Ro. I thought that was so sweet. He could be an acquired taste though. I say though because if you're anything like me and you despise aggressive male characters that are masked as protective or possessive, even if it's supposed to be hot, it just may not read that way. There are a lot of times where he just blatantly tells Lark he won't take no as an answer. Not with anything sexually, so everything is consensual between them. Normally I'd be waving a big red flag. But it's obvious between both of their POVs that he's only persistent because he knows she's into him, but just playing a game. As if our lovable main characters weren't enough. Then we've got equally lovable supporting characters. Gertie is Ronan's assistant. She just stole the spotlight for me. There's something about elderly people being written as supporting characters that is just so lovable to me. She's blunt when she needs to be, but it's all in good fun. You could tell just how much she loves Lark and Ronan and Ren, but especially when she isn't sure what Ronan's intentions are, she's there for her girls Lark and Ren. She is just such a comfort character. I'm manifesting we can get some scenes between her and Harry that we were introduced to in Cal and Nellie's story together because they'd be a hoot. I would read that story. That being said, I could not stand Ember. She is a student that is currently suing Lark. Look, I understand that she was going through a lot, and yes, that does grant her some leeway, but she was just vindictive. She made it personal. She didn't want to empathize with Lark, but expected her to do so for her. She never considered that Lark is a single parent, going through the motions of not only parenthood, but also this monumental transition in her life. She's got plenty going on in her life that it's understandable why she wasn't noticing the signs with everything going on with Ember, but you've got to keep an open mind when it comes to the plot, because there were lots of plots and twists that didn't read as well as others. That being said, it is all completely within the realm of believability. Outside of the teacher being sued, I don't think that is usual. I could be wrong, but this plot definitely keeps you on your toes, that's for sure. I was gonna rate this book 5 stars, but there was a plot twist introduced at the end that was not given the time of day it needed to be given. I think it would have been better as the climax, or not as a point of conflict at all. I did read this book in one sitting though. All of these books are a little over 300 pages, so I would definitely recommend them if you're in a reading slump. Now, the next book in the series is about Wilder. We've read about him not only in this book, but one of the other books. He is a science teacher that doesn't get along with Lark, but he never says anything to anyone. He's very closed off. We learn he's a widow, so our next book is about him, and I am not quite sure who the love interest is. We weren't introduced to her, I don't believe. But I'm a little surprised the author decided to give us their story next, just because I thought we'd get Zach's story first. Zach is Lark's brother. I'm not sure if we're gonna get a book about him though. I wish we would. I think there is a lot of backstory with him that could be played around with. Either way, I'm counting down the days till August 10th. Then the last book I read was not a book at all. It was a novella. Could that still be considered a book? I'm not sure. It is supposed to go in between the first and second book in the series, though you could read it at any point. I don't recommend reading it. It was very pointless. I say that only because I expected it to be a playful, steamy read, and it wasn't. There was no spice at all in this. None! Look at that title and tell me you think there wouldn't be any. I was misled. So it is all about Aiden Archer, the lawyer from Everly and Hux's story. Lola Jennings is mourning a breakup, but she ends up going to this bar. There's a regular butt contest going on. I can't explain this plot seriously. I'm so sorry. Essentially, she ends up falling into the arms of Aiden. Literally, we get told they spend a night together. I'm a little upset we're not in the audience for that one. But then, her best friend, I believe, is going through a divorce. So, she goes to Calamity to be with her friend as support. Then, we learn that Aiden is the lawyer for her best friend's husband. The drama. I'm not even sure I gave this a rating. If you want a very short novella to go toward your reading goal, you could read it, I suppose. It wasn't worth it to me, but it also only took me 30 minutes maybe. It's only 73 pages. Okay friends, those were all of the books I read in April. If you're looking for more of my content, I post daily on my booktok. I've started posting daily on my bookstagram. If you want to see what I'm currently reading, you can go join me over on Goodreads. If you want to read with me, I've got a book club over on Fable. It's called Lessons in 11. You should totally join. Currently, we are voting for our May read. I say currently, by the time this video is up, we've already chosen. I'm predicting Happy Place by Emily Henry is going to be our next read because it's currently winning in the poll. Let's check. We've got some good choices this month. Oh, it's so close. So our 4 choices are Happy Place by Emily Henry, Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings, Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld, and Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Poor Forever Interrupted has been an option for the past 4 months. It's been on the poll and it's never been chosen. I'm manifesting June will be the month for that book. I personally want to reread Happy Place. I think reading it with everyone would just be so enjoyable. It obviously just came out. I read it as an ARC and it is my favorite standalone of all time. It is currently at 39% and Magnolia Parks is at 26%. It's been going between the two for the past 2 days. Someone just said they want to read all of these. I agree, girl. I want to read all of these as well. But essentially, you should totally join. We've got so much going on over there. It's just so much fun getting to talk to you all and share my thoughts with you. You all just got such great energy. I am living for it. We also started doing playlists for every book that we read. So I'll make it on Spotify and then I will share the link with everyone so it's a collaborative playlist. Anyway, I'd love to know what you're currently reading, what books you read in April, what books you're planning on reading in May. But as always, happy reading.